Welcome to Song of the Week. You have chosen Song of the Week by ABBA is The King Has Lost His Crown from 1979. Released on ABBA's sixth album Voulez-Vous, and afterwards as a single B-side for the single Gimme Gimme Gimme, A Man After Midnight. And apart from that, this song never really appeared anywhere else, but it gets so much praise, even from ABBA themselves. So we will talk about the history and legacy of this song, how ABBA composed The King Has Lost His Crown. We will talk about the lyrics, the recording sessions, and vocal recording sessions. We will talk about Frida's vocal delivery and the fate and destiny that the song received, including the sort of cult following and praise for this song, not only by fans, but by ABBA themselves. The historical details from this video are largely based on the research by Carl Magnus Palm from his books Bright Lights, Dark Shadows, and mainly the complete recording sessions. But I'm also incorporating your voice, your opinion, your aspects and thoughts that you left about this special song, and all of my own context, connections and perceptions. Many of you called The King Has Lost His Crown a hidden gem, underrated, underestimated jewel, an underappreciated ABBA song. People wrote that it should have been a single A-side. Someone wondered why it wasn't a single in the United States of America, and someone else did not even know the song somehow. So that's the range of perception for this track, and we are starting our deep dive at the very beginning, the creation itself. Early autumn of 1978, this song was written by Björn and Benny on the island of Viksö. You remember ABBA's journey through time on Instagram from 5 years ago. Björn said this about the song. Benny and I were at Viksö, an island in the Stockholm archipelago, when we wrote this. It was an early autumn and quite cold, but despite that we took Benny's yacht to Sandhamn to celebrate. We never let an opportunity to celebrate slip by in those days. And they had very good reason to celebrate this song, as this was a time when Björn and Benny were writing and recording so many tracks for ABBA's upcoming album, but almost none of them were deemed good enough and were left unreleased at the time. This was only one of 3 songs from this period, from these first 6 months into the writing and recording session, that would eventually be released at the time. And this aspect will be important later on for the fate of the song. But now that they had this melody, what would the music of this new song tell Björn for his lyrics? When Björn and Benny wrote the song, the preliminary title had an underworld theme going on. The first title was called Beelzebub, a name for a demon, Lord of the Flies. An alternate early working title was The Devil in Miss Jones. This was the title for a 1973 pornographic film set in hell. This dark theme is quite fitting for this track. We will pick this up when we talk about the composition and arrangement of the song, the music and Frida's vocal delivery. On the track sheet you can see that the song is called The King Has Lost a Pound. Carl Magnus Palm clears up that this was never a real title for The King Has Lost His Crown, but that Björn Benny and Michael Bidretov usually couldn't resist scribbling a silly pun on track sheets. The final lyrics are not about Sweden's king or any king. Björn wrote the lyrics as an allegory about the end of a relationship. This is what Björn said about the song. This is his introduction to The King Has Lost His Crown for ABBA's one and only TV performance of the track on ABBA in Switzerland. And take a look at Agneta in the background when Björn introduces the title of the song.
And here's one now, and despite the title, it hasn't got anything to do with our very nice Swedish king, but it's called The king has lost his crown.
The woman, Frida as lead vocalist, asks her former lover how it feels now that he was left and humiliated. The king has lost his crown is about that proud man, the king, who is now himself left and humiliated by that new woman in his life. Let's take a look at Björn's lyrics. I believe your new girl turned you down, and they say she's pushing you around. These first few lines already indicate that this former pair is not in contact anymore. I believe, they say. They are not in contact, probably not even friends any longer, which makes the next lines even more sarcastic and spiteful. I guess it hurts your pride. Tell me, my friend, how many nights you've cried. He is most certainly not even her friend any longer. This is her revenge. I love the lines in the chorus, disaster and disgrace. Suddenly, he's clumsy like a clown. We will talk about Frida's vocal delivery in a moment, which gives these words so many feelings. Another favorite line of mine comes from the second verse. Oh, what a shame, you really want that girl. She doesn't care, still you just dream of her. This is her giving back the heartbreaking feelings that she must have felt, that he must have given to her when he left her for this new woman who now left him. And here we have that dark theme from those initial titles, Beelzebub, Devil in Miss Jones, now reflected in those final lyrics and words. It's an interesting set of lyrics to an interesting musical approach and arrangement. This dark theme is also reflected in the music itself. Let's talk about the music. Some of you in the comment section praised the oxymoron style of the music. The song has punch, yet at the same time a form of tenderness. The intro is suspenseful yet haunting. There's a groove to this song. There was praise for the song's arrangement. It was called a bit different but still ABBA, a Bee Gees influence production. The song is regarded as a touch of classical and disco, as one of ABBA's more sophisticated recordings, an example of their ongoing musical and lyrical development from album to album. People praised the beautiful melody, the unusual melody. There was praise for the chorus and production. Someone pointed out that so much is going on with the instrumentation, and someone else highlighted Lasse Welander's guitar work. Carl Magnus Palm wrote about this that arrangement-wise, Lasse Welander's guitar playing in the verses sounds similar to the guitar work of Fleetwood Mac's song Dreams from their album Rumors, which is one of Benny's all-time favorite albums. And you people also left praise for and wonder about the song's chord progressions. This brings us to the arrangement and style of the song. Let's dive into the recording session. The song has Benny Andersson on keyboards and synthesizers, Lasse Welander on guitars, Rutger Gunnarsson on bass, Anders Elias for string arrangement, and Jan Risberg on oboe. But it also has Rolf Alex for drums, and he played drums for ABBA only on a handful of their songs and only from around this time period. Most of his contributions remained unreleased at the time, Hamlet and Just a Notion. In the complete recording sessions, he said this about his contributions. He was asking for some guidance for his playing. Björn told him, just start with a straight beat on the bass drum and we'll see how it develops from there. So to start with, the drummer was more or less a human click track. He just played a steady beat on the bass drum and the hi-hat and nothing else. Some of that bare-bones drumming lived on in the final arrangement, with the song starting off with no other rhythm than the hi-hat, and returning to this very basic setup of hi-hat and bass drum every now and then in the song. You remember the dark theme of the song, those first working titles, the lyrics. The King Has Lost His Crown is set in minor key. Most listeners perceive minor keys as sad, dark, mysterious, or tense, not essentially happy and bright. And the minor key with this song happened by pure mistake. ABBA's sound engineer Michael Bidretov talked about the recording session of the song. This comes from the complete recording sessions. Benny was doing some keyboard overdubs when he happened to make a mistake. He played a minor chord where it should have been a major one. I said, "That sounds great, it's much better," and so he redid all the keyboard parts. The only problem was that the girls had already recorded their vocals, and there was one note that would be out of tune if we changed the chords. Fortunately, by this time, something called the Eventide harmonizer was available, with which one could alter the pitch of sounds electronically. I fed that one note on the vocal track through the harmonizer, by which I was able to lower it a semitone and then on to the tape again. I bet the girls were surprised when they heard the song and found that they sang in minor when they knew they had recorded it in major. Let's talk about the vocals. Frida's voice was called first class, amazing and warming. Someone praised the velvet warmth of Frida's voice. Someone else singled out her outstanding voice range on this track. Again, an oxymoron like the music itself, her voice was described as soothing, yet magnificent and powerful. It was called gorgeous and sultry, yet very sarcastic, especially her interpretation in the verses. Frida's delivery can be compared in style to the singing of a pop chanson, with Frida delivering her acting talent in singing, giving voice to those sweet feelings of revenge. Frida sings beautifully on it, and Agneta's backing is perfect with those dissonant harmonies, as someone pointed out. Carl Magnus Palm called this song an undisputed highlight of the album, with Frida inhabiting the role of the wronged woman with that strange mixture of regret, spite and pride that only she could conjure up. In Bright Lights, Dark Shadows, he wrote, "Voulez-vous was an album charged with strong sexual undercurrents where heartbreak mixed with lust in one and the same track." Frida was coolly contemplative in The King Has Lost His Crown. In May 1979, an Australian radio show celebrated the release of Voulez-vous, and there was a telephone interview by ABBA with Ray McGregory. This was released as a promo LP in Australia by RCA, and this is what Frida said about the song.
Frida, the cut I'll talk about now is The King Has Lost His Crown.
It was funny you mention it because it's one of my favorite songs on this album. And as Agneta said before, it's really hard to talk about the songs because it's a certain feeling when you do them, and the feelings are of course different from song to song. But this one I feel very, very much for. It has a nice atmosphere, something new, I think, to ABBA, something we haven't created before in a way.
Over the years, Frida has called The King Has Lost His Crown several times as one of her favorites. In the complete recording sessions, she is quoted as describing it as a lovely song with wonderful harmonies. During ABBA's vocal recording session for the song, a reporter from the official UK magazine, ABBA Magazine, visited the studio. ABBA recorded vocals for Just a Notion, followed by The King Has Lost His Crown. And after the recording for Just a Notion, which wasn't too successful, the reporter wrote, they decided to try something else, a number called The King Has Lost His Crown. Benny directs the proceedings until the girls decide they are hungry. It is 2 o'clock and they have been working hard since 11. This gives us just a glimpse, but one of those rare insights into the actual studio recording work of ABBA. The rest is left to our imagination. And ABBA would continue to mix and even re-record further takes of the song, and probably intended the song to be bigger than it ended up being. The archives have 2 alternate mixes with some minor differences, early mixes of the song with no strings. The Polymoog synthesizer plays instead of strings, and there are subtle differences in the mixing. The most crucial difference might be the ending. It runs longer. The song with this longer ending was then mixed into the final master, and before it was faded out earlier for the song's release on the album and single. This full-length version with the longer ending has survived. It was performed on ABBA in Switzerland, and this was officially released on DVD as part of the Voulez-Vous Deluxe Edition. We can hear almost 20 seconds more at the end of the song, which we don't hear on the album or single release. And even more intriguing, according to Carl Magnus Palm, this full-length version with the longer ending was apparently also broadcast on radio in Japan during ABBA's visit to Japan a few months earlier, in November 1978. Now, why was this song picked for Japanese radio? Why was it performed in Switzerland in the first place? What's the fate of The King Has Lost His Crown? First and foremost, on the Switzerland show, ABBA wanted to have a selection of new songs to preview their upcoming new album Voulez-Vous, but I still think they were always fond, if not even very proud, of this particular song, and there's enough proof for that. I mentioned this earlier. During the first 6 months of work for the album in 1978, The King Has Lost His Crown was one of very few songs which Björn and Benny finished and with which they were really satisfied with. The other 2 songs at that time were Lovers Live a Little Longer and Summer Night City. So The King Has Lost His Crown must have had a special meaning for Björn and Benny already very early on. They had something good, and as we've learned, they virtually celebrated this song after their songwriting session. And I think they wanted to do more with this song. Most intriguingly, in the autumn of 1979, The King Has Lost His Crown was intended to be included for ABBA's live concert tour in 1979. ABBA prepared a backing choir rough mix of the song, which is left unreleased in the archives, and they actually re-recorded the song in the studio in August 1979 as part of an in-studio rehearsal tape recorded at Polar Music Studio. The ending of this live rehearsal performance is described by Carl Magnus Palm. The girls sing "Disaster and Disgrace," holding a long note on the final syllable, followed by a replay of this melody line. The song even stayed in the proposed setlist for the concerts for a long time before it was eventually ditched. It was never performed live by ABBA for their concerts. The recording of this rehearsal tape, the entire tape with 22 songs, exists in the archives but remains unreleased. For the tour, ABBA recorded in the studio the song Gimme Gimme Gimme, A Man After Midnight, and released it as a single, and the B-side for this single release became The King Has Lost His Crown. Basically, the tour song was complemented by a song intended for the tour, but which didn't end up in concerts. This was the final fate that happened to The King Has Lost His Crown. In 2021, during ABBA's Voyage live event, Björn mentioned the song and he said that it should have been a hit. Björn said The King Has Lost His Crown deserves a better destiny.
But there are songs that should have been hits, like Under Attack.
Yeah.
The King has
down then.
Was that the... Oh.
The King Has Lost His Crown, I think, deserves a better destiny.
With all this history, the depth and all the fate for this song, I'm very happy that this was our lead song, our very first song to become Song of the Week by ABBA. You have chosen and I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Let me know your opinion on this track. What have you learned? Are there any surprises? And what else do you have in mind for this song? Let's celebrate this week ABBA's The King Has Lost His Crown. Thank you for all your input. Alright, until then, hej då!